2 years ago, I joked that tracking XRP rumors was harder than herding caffeinated cats. And it turns out today's rumor might be the biggest cat of them all. Now, I stumbled into a rabbit hole about the US Treasury possibly loading up on XRP, and what I found flips the whole just another altcoin story on its head. So picture this, it's 2 AM, I'm half asleep scrolling through crypto Twitter when Edoardo Farina, yep, that's the Alpha Lions Academy guy, who famously, at least who's famous I should say, for very bold predictions, and he drops a tweet that simply says, "Buy XRP before the US Treasury announces it." There's no context to it, there's no thread to it, there's nothing. Now my first thought was, sure, and my neighbor's goldfish is secretly Satoshi. But curiosity is a very powerful caffeine. So I fired up another espresso, start digging, and the deeper that I go, the more that it feels like one of those spy movies where the quiet guy in the back row suddenly flashes a CIA badge. So here is why that single line sent me spiraling then. Ripple, the company behind XRP, quietly filed for a full-blown US national bank charter. Now that's not a kind of lemonade stand license. It's the real deal rubber stamp that lets you play with the big boys. So let's think JP Morgan, Citibank, the whole of Wall Street's orchestra. Now on top of that, Ripple's affiliate, Standard Custody, put in paperwork for a Federal Reserve master account. Now the translation there is that if they get blessed, they can park reserves for their shiny new dollar-pegged stablecoin, RLUSD, directly at the Fed, instead of kind of, I guess, tiptoeing around and putting things through a middleman bank. Now, when I read that, I nearly kind of sprayed cold brew all over my keyboard. Now, blend those kind of fresh filings with Farina's older theory. Now, he swears that back in 2019 and 2020, the US Treasury, maybe even the IMF and the BIS, quietly scooped up chunks of the 37 billion XRP escrow Ripple controls. Now, he admits there's zero on-chain proof. Critics call him no evidence invigilist, but every time Ripple kind of inches closer to government plumbing, his story ages like a thriller plot twist. So I decided to trace the breadcrumbs for myself. First stop is the XRP Ledger Explorer. Now you can see Ripple unlocking 1 billion XRP from escrow at the start of every month like clockwork. But who buys the fresh supply at the OTC desk? And the ledger doesn't list customer names, just wallet addresses that look like alien license plate numbers. So could a hush-hush treasury wallet be lurking around? Possible. Provable? Not unless Janet Yellen live streams her MetaMask, of course. So I jumped on a Zoom call with a buddy who used to audit banks. He goes, dude, any agency buying assets that big would bury it behind layers of custodians. It's like painting a black cat in a very dark room. Then he hits me with a stat. More than 60 countries now hold reserves in something besides the US dollar. That's from gold to the IMF's SDR basket. If governments are willing to stash, I guess various different bonds, is it crazy to think that they'd test drive a programmable instant settlement token like XRP? That thought ping-ponged in my brain for the rest of the night. Meanwhile, Ripple's banking play kind of keeps snowballing out of control. A national charter would let them custodian dollar deposits for RLUSD users, cut fees, and clear payments faster than my Wi-Fi drops on laundry day. So if RLUSD launches with Fed backing, it basically turbocharges RippleNet's speedboat into a nuclear submarine. Right now, Everyone's kind of distracted by stablecoin wars, USDC versus USDT, but Ripple's building the tunnel underneath the battlefield. And if that tunnel plugs directly into the US Treasury systems, well, you suddenly see why Farina's tweet reads less like clickbait and more like insider Morse code. Of course, there's a giant elephant tap dancing in the room, the SEC. Now, the lawsuit saga officially ended months ago with XRP declared not a security in the secondary markets. You can cue the champagne emojis. But regulators can still pull a surprise encore at any time. Now that's why Kraken Pro, the affiliate link is in the description, and yes, it supports the channel here, was so quick to relist XRP. Right, liquidity exploded overnight, spreads tightened, and for the first time in ages, you could move 5 figures without slippage that's crushing your soul. Now Kraken's depth book basically told the world, we're comfortable, come and trade. And that confidence ripple effect, pun totally intended, into institutional corridors. And yet, the haters still yell, show me proof that the Treasury even cares. And sure, it's a bit of a fair point. So I did what any caffeine-fueled sleuth would do. I would cross-reference Ripple's lobbying disclosures with known defense contract meetings. Guess what? Popped up after that, well, at least 3 recorded meetups between Ripple reps and Treasury staffers in the past 18 months. Now, we can talk about blockchain-based cross-border settlements, and do we have a bit of a coincidence on our hands? Maybe, but I've never seen Dogecoin devs invited to those kind of powwows, have you? Anyway, midway through my rabbit hole marathon, my phone buzzes. Discord ping. One of our free educational server members drops a chart showing XRP volume spiking exactly 5 minutes after Farina's tweet. Classic rumor pump behavior, sure, but it also signals algo traders are wiring alerts straight to his feed. That's kind of like having paparazzi who show up before the celebrity leaves the house. Now, if you want to follow insanity like that in real time, you should probably hop into the server. The invite link is chilling in the description, and the price of admission is exactly 0. And by the way, and here's the kind of big breath moment, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and today's video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, that's the lawyers fed and watered. Let's keep spelunking. Back to the treasure map. Right, I pulled up XRP's escrow schedule. 55 billion originally locked up, with 37 billion still left. Now every month, 1 billion drops. Ripple sells what they need and shoves the rest back into a 60-month lock. Now critics say that's supply inflation, but just imagine, if the Treasury already negotiated rights to chunks of that pipeline. Well, they'd be kind of future ammo, kind of locked at pre-announcement prices. Think of it like Netflix pre-buying streaming rights to a blockbuster before the premiere, right? When the world catches up, they're already stocked. And then I examined FedNow's pilot documents, and yes, the same instant payment network that launched last year. And guessed who listed as a participant providing settlement infrastructure feedback? Standard Custody. That's Ripple's affiliate seeking a master account. Now, if their feedback kind of shapes FedNow rails, RLUSD could settle faster than you can finish saying real-time gross settlement. Now, if Treasury wants to kind of modernize debt instruments or saving bonds using tokenized rails, they need a ledger that finalizes in 3 seconds and costs fractions of a cent. XRP Ledger, it ticks those boxes like a bored student acting, or acing I should should say a quiz. But let's talk psychology for a second. Markets, they don't wait for official press releases, right? They sniff around the kitchen before dinner's served. Now, Farina's tweet might be pure hopium, but hopium moves prices if enough traders buy the dream. And Ripple's every kind of step towards, banking legitimacy acts as lighter fluid. Right? Each regulatory filing is a breadcrumb pointing somewhere bigger, maybe a Treasury partnership, maybe just world-class optics. Either way, sentiment surges. Still, I'm a data dude, so I downloaded the daily XRP volume across exchanges, top 5, including Kraken Pro, and charted them against large escrow releases. The pattern? Volumes swell not on unlock days, but on rumor days. And when Farina drops a sentence, social media volume spikes 500% within 2 hours. That's free marketing that you can't buy with a Super Bowl ad. Now, as a content creator, I know eyeballs follow emotional trigger words, Treasury, announcement, game changer. Mix those with a ledger that most investors still underrate, and you kind of have this kind of Molotov kind of cocktail of FOMO. Yet, I cannot ignore the skeptics, right? One analyst DM'd me, if the Treasury wants XRP, they'd just print dollars and buy it OTC tomorrow. Why the stealth? And my reply, it's politics, right? Because if you imagine headlines screaming government buys speculative crypto with taxpayer money, well, voters would riot faster than Bitcoin kind of gas fees in a bull run. But a quiet, long-term agreement hidden behind custodial layers, that's plausible deniability with a side of national security scarcity and, of course, secrecy. Anyone remember 2008? Right, the Fed conjured trillions in emergency liquidity, signed opaque repo deals that no one understood until years later. If crisis strikes again, say global liquidity squeeze, Treasuries worldwide might prefer assets that settle internationally without swift choke points. XRP's deterministic kind of ledger is built for that nightmare. So Farina's insulation, sounds less kind of tinfoil hat and more 4D chess move. I also reached out to a former IMF economist on LinkedIn. He couldn't go on the record, of course, NDA's thicker than, I guess Tolstoy kind of novel, but hinted central banks that have been stress testing multiple interoperable tokens. Now, the IMF's cross-border payment roadmap, literally kind of cites public-private token solutions as a priority by 2027. Now, that timeline dovetails nicely with Ripple's 5-year escrow horizon. Coincidence? Well, the plot thickens like day-old oatmeal. Now, of course, there's the dragon in the cave. Supply distribution. It's roughly 4% of, addresses hold more than 10,000 XRP. Now that concentration scares equity investors, but if some of those whale addresses belong to government entities, well, the centralization narrative, it flips into a strategic reserve narrative. Gold is centralized in Fort Knox, yet nobody panics about the supply being in one vault. It's all about framing. Okay, let's lighten the mood. I promised some humor, right? So imagine Jerome Powell accidentally tweeting GM XRP army, right? Before, of course, quickly deleting it, right? Twitter would kind of melt faster than a kind of popsicle in the Dubai heat and asphalt, right? Memes would fly, TikToks would, boogie, and I'd be probably going live, coffee in hand, shrieking like a game show host. Now, in my journey down this rabbit hole, two paths they keep crossing. That's regulatory clarity and infrastructure positioning. Ripple's legal victory gave XRP the not a security badge in trading arenas. The banking charter application aims to embed Ripple within the heart of the US financial plumbing. If the Fed grants a master account, it's like getting an all-access backstage pass to the monetary concert. Parallel to that, the rumored kind of Treasury stash could function as the government's in-house supply of digital special drawing rights, a programmable reserve that they can deploy in emergencies for cross-border aid. Now, critics will point to the missing smoking gun, and fair enough. They have spreadsheets, and Farina has hunches, but markets, they run on probabilities, not on certainties. Tesla kind of soared before profits, or at least before profit, because investors kind of priced future dominance. Same for Amazon in the 90s. So the million XRP question is, what probability do you assign to a Treasury XRP link? Even if it's only a 5% chance, it can be worth positioning if your risk tolerance allows for it and you're not betting the rent money. Now, because I value sleep and, of course, your sanity, let's go ahead and land this plane. From national bank charters to master account dreams, Ripple is inching towards a seat at the grown-ups table. Now, Farina's tweet pours gasoline on a fire already smoldering in the XRP community, the belief that the token could underpin the next-gen financial plumbing. Now, there's no on-chain proof Uncle Sam owns Escrow chunks, but there's mounting kind of, circumstantial evidence that the government is watching and it is talking, and maybe it's even testing. And if you want to keep tabs on every single breadcrumb in real time, you'll probably want to swing by our free educational Discord server. Links, marinating in the description down below. We dissect the rumors, we share the charts, and occasionally debate whether coffee or Red Bull kind of powers the crypto market. And if you're itching to trade XRP with tight spreads, Kraken Pro has you covered. The affiliate link is also in the description, and using it throws a few satoshis back to fund this channel's caffeine addiction at no extra cost to yourself. So, what's my play? Well, I've carved out a modest XRP stack, parked it in cold storage, and set my alerts for any Treasury-related filings. Maybe it'll kind of be a wild goose chase, or maybe, just maybe, Farina's announcement will hit the wire, one sleepy Friday, and rewire absolutely everything. Until then, I'll keep my detective hat on, my espresso shot, loaded, and we'll take it one at a time.